My name is Ethan. I'm 28 and I live in a sleepy little town nestled in the Cascade foothills, a stone's throw from Seattle. Life here moves at a slower pace, which suits me just fine. I occupy a simple one-bedroom apartment over a quiet bookstore, and my days are spent as a network cable installer, threading wires through walls and ceilings and offices and new homes. It's not a job that sparks a lot of conversation at parties, but it's honest work that pays my rent and keeps my body active. I've always been a man of few words, preferring to listen and observe. I've never navigated a serious relationship, not for lack of wanting one, I suppose. I just always assumed that part of life would sort itself out eventually, but eventually seemed to be perpetually delayed. Most of my mornings were etched into a predictable pattern. I'd start my day at the corner booth, a small diner 3 blocks from my apartment, for breakfast before my first job. My order never varied. 2 eggs over easy, bacon crisp, wheat toast, and a large black coffee. Same time, same meal every single day. And every day, the same woman was working the counter. Her name was Maya. She appeared to be a few years my senior, with auburn hair she always kept pulled back in a messy bun, revealing the constellation of freckles across her nose. Her forearms were a canvas of intricate faded tattoos, and she favored soft, worn-out flannels over her uniform. She never offered a manufactured customer service smile. If she smiled, it was because something had genuinely amused her. She wasn't pretending to be pleasant. She was authentically herself. Her tone carried a dry, effortless wit that could make the gruffest old-timers chuckle. But with me, our interactions were minimal. The usual, she'd ask and I'd nod. Thanks, I'd say when she brought the plate. That was the extent of it. In her world, I was likely just another face in the morning rush. Then one Wednesday morning around 7:30, I was running late and had to scarf down my breakfast faster than usual. I paid in cash, left a tip, and rushed out to my first appointment. I arrived at the site, a new office building downtown, and began mapping out the server room. When I reached into my bag for my work tablet to pull up the blueprints, my hand met empty space. My stomach lurched. I retraced my steps in my mind, the hurried meal, the quick exit. The only place it could be was the diner. A wave of panic washed over me. My entire work schedule was on that device. I drove back as fast as I legally could, but the tablet wasn't on the table where I've been sitting. I asked the cook, a burly man named Hank, if he'd seen it. He just shrugged, pointing a thumb toward the back. He mentioned Maya had stepped out for a moment. Something about a delivery for one of the regulars who was housebound. That seemed unusual. Waitresses didn't typically leave mid-shift to run errands. I resigned myself to checking back later, but it turned out I didn't need to. About an hour later, as I was standing by my work van trying to explain the delay to my supervisor on my personal phone, an older, slightly dented station wagon pulled into the parking lot. Maya got out holding my tablet in her hand. "I think this belongs to you," she said, offering a small, knowing smirk. I was completely floored. "How did you possibly?" She gestured to the device. "Your company logo is on the case. A quick search told me where you'd be today." She handed it to me and my mind went blank. I was so thrown by her appearance that I nearly forgot my manners. "You drove all the way out here just for this?" I finally managed to ask, the words feeling clumsy in my mouth. She gave a slight shrug, stuffing her hands into the pockets of her jeans. "Well, I figured you were probably dead in the water without it. Besides," she added, her eyes twinkling with a bit of mischief, "I was curious to see where the eggs over easy bacon crisp actually went to work every day." My small, unpracticed laugh escaped me, but it was real. "You remember my order?" She tilted her head as if the question was absurd. "Of course I do. You're in my section every morning at 7:15. Sharp. I know all my regulars, but you're the quiet one, a man of mystery." I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a warm flush crawling up my neck. I'm not much of a morning person." Her smirk softened into a genuine smile, and for a beat, the air between us felt still and charged like the world had briefly held its breath. Then she spoke, her voice losing some of its sarcastic edge. "Well, you've said more to me in the last 5 minutes than you have in the past year combined." I guess that makes us acquaintances now. Maybe even friends. The declaration caught me completely by surprise. I let out another nervous chuckle. Yeah, I guess it does. She nodded decisively. All right, mystery man. Try not to lose that again. And with that, she turned, got back into her car, and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot. I stood there for a long moment, the tablet cool and solid in my hand, my heart performing a strange, unfamiliar rhythm in my chest. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I didn't feel like an extra in the background of my own story. I had no idea what to do with this new sensation. But I knew one thing for certain. That morning when she pulled up in her old car and offered me that knowing smile was the first time in years I had felt truly seen. That night's sleep was a stranger. It wasn't anxiety or stress that kept me awake, but the constant replay of that 10-minute encounter in the parking lot, her voice, the cadence of her wit, the brief unguarded flicker of something curious in her eyes. I think that was the moment it truly began. It wasn't love. Not then, but something dormant inside me had stirred. A tiny crack appearing in a wall I didn't even know I'd built. For the first time, I felt a pull to show up for something more than just breakfast. I wanted to show up for her. In the days following Maya's return of my tablet, I was a mess. Every time I walked through the door of that diner, it felt like my legs were made of lead. My voice would get stuck in my throat before I could even say hello, and she in her own subtle way didn't make it any easier. She began treating me like we were actual friends. Not in an effusive bubbly manner, but with a casual ease the way you speak to someone you've known for ages. Morning 7:15. She'd greet me as I walked in, my system still running on fumes and social awkwardness. I'd manage a smile. Sometimes I'd even volley back a quiet one-word response. Other times, I'd just stand there looking at her as if I'd completely forgotten why I came in. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, I started to find my footing. I began to respond with more than just a nod or a thanks. One morning, I saw her meticulously wiping down the glass of the dessert display case, and I heard myself ask, "Don't you ever get tired of this place?" She glanced up, a rag in her hand. "Oh, every single day. But I've also got rent to pay and a 7-year-old with an expensive obsession with astronaut ice cream. So this is where I am." I was quiet for a second, processing the new information. "You have a kid?" She nodded, her expression unwavering. "Yep, Noah. He's in 2nd grade. Loves anything to do with outer space and hates doing his homework. What about you? Got a secret family stashed away somewhere?" I laughed. A real laugh this time. "No, just me. Never really got around to the whole family thing." "There's still time," she said, her voice soft but certain. That simple phrase echoed in my mind for the rest of the day. Over the next few weeks, this became our new routine. I'd come in for breakfast and we'd exchange little pieces of our lives. We talked about her favorite sci-fi authors, my strangest clients, the time she tried to dye her own hair blonde in high school. It turned a faint shade of green. She shared stories with a remarkable lack of pretense, as if she was completely unconcerned with being judged. And the more I listened, the more I began to see the weight she carried. She never said it outright, but it was there in the shadows of her eyes when she mentioned her ex-husband. It was audible in the brief hesitations before she changed the subject. She had been hurt deeply. She wasn't broken, just bone-tired. I never made the mistake of trying to fix her. I wasn't her savior, but I kept showing up. I started leaving little doodles on my napkins for her son. Rockets, ringed planets, goofy-looking aliens. She would roll her eyes playfully when she cleared my table, but I had a feeling she smiled at them later when no one was looking. Then one Friday the rhythm changed. The sun had already set, casting long shadows across the street, and I was walking home after a late job. I passed the diner and saw her through the window, locking the front door. I paused on the sidewalk, the debate raging in my head. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I crossed the street. "Hey!" I said, my voice softer than I intended. She turned, her keys jingling in her hand. "Ethan, you're out past your bedtime." I smiled. "Just wrapped up a job?" She held her keys loosely, not seeming to be in any particular hurry. Want to walk for a bit? I asked, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I'm not ready to go straight home. I didn't have to consider it for a second. Yeah, of course. We started walking, the silence between us comfortable, filled only by the sound of her worn-out boots and my work shoes on the pavement. A few blocks down, she gestured toward a house that still had its inflatable Halloween decorations sagging in the yard. Even though it was December, some people have a hard time letting things go, she murmured. I glanced at her profile in the dim light of the street lamps, wondering if she was talking about more than just holiday decorations. Do you miss him? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't reply immediately. I miss who I thought he was, she said finally, her gaze fixed on the sidewalk ahead. The idea of him, not the man he turned out to be. We continued our walk, eventually ending up at a small neighborhood park with a single wooden bench illuminated by a solitary street lamp. She sat down _ bitmap.